In 2008, a video game company known as Hard Circle was founded by somebody named Brett Measer. With programmer Jeff Feenstra and artist Michael Opata, they released the flash game Bimmin, an endless runner game that went on to find some moderate success. Looking for inspiration for Hard Circle's next project, Brett stumbled across a game called Cactus McCoy and the Curse of the Thorns, a platformer beat-em-up set in the Wild West, featuring a cactus as the protagonist. Around this time, the hugely influential platformer Super Meat Boy was released, a full-fledged PC sequel to its Flash predecessor Meat Boy. After playing these games, Brett was convinced that Hard Circle's next release had to be a platformer. A programmer named Thomas Martin, who now worked at Hard Circle, was a huge fan of Indiana Jones, so they decided to name this project Pixel Quest: The Lost Idols, a game about a treasure hunter who was collecting golden frog idols for a tribe that had lost them. On November 9th, 2011, the game was released out into the wild and would go on to become their most popular release by far, having huge success on websites like Cool Math Games, Congregate, and Armor Games, reaching over 500,000 plays on that website alone. The game was laid out into 3 sets of 16 stages, with each post-tutorial level having 3 golden idols to be collected. For the second level set to be unlocked, 24 total idols had to have been collected. And for the third level set to be unlocked, 72 idols had to have been collected. The minds at Hard Circle wanted the game to be, well, hard, which is shown by the level difficulty ramping up significantly between each level set. Among the idols, there were many gems in each level that could be collected, though these only served as a way to boost the player's score and weren't required for any form of level progression. Aside from walking, jumping, and double jumping, the only special move that the protagonist possesses is the dash, where the player can zip forward with the Z key, vital for dodging obstacles and efficiently collecting idols. Now, I don't know what the first platformer to feature a dash mechanic was, but I can confidently say to all the Celeste fans watching that Pixel Quest did it before, just not nearly as well. The dash mechanic in Pixel Quest is what would go on to allow for the most important speedrunning glitch present in the game. A couple of months after the release of The Lost Idols, Hard Circle would release a sequel called Pixel Quest: The Lost Gifts, which slapped some different level design and a wintry coat of paint on the game, just in time for the holidays. However, in terms of both speedrunning and casual play, the original Pixel Quest remained the more popular option. So, when did Pixel Quest's speedrunning scene begin, and how were speedrunners able to discover the infamous wall phasing glitch that would go on to completely break the game? After spending hours searching YouTube and other archives to try to locate any runs that may be missing from the leaderboards, I can confirm that the first known Pixel Quest speedrun was uploaded on August 17th, 2015 by a speedrunner named Devion102. Speaking of searching, did you know that thousands of people still find my new videos by typing my channel name, It's Maximum, into the search bar? Actually, much more commonly, people type It's Space Maximum. Well, if you want to avoid ever having to do that again in the future, subscribing to the channel is the best way to be made aware of when I upload any new videos. Also, on the subject of the channel name, a few days after this video goes public, I will be shortening the channel name from It's Maximum to simply Maximum. I've had the youtube.com/maximum URL for over half a year, and I've been going by Maximum on most other social platforms for quite a while now, with the only notable exception being Twitch, where the Maximum name is unfortunately taken. Therefore, I think it's time that I make the switch over on YouTube. Anyways, in his run, Devion spends a bunch of time going for a skip in level 1 where the player can barely kick off the raised wall and continue to scale it, which can be slightly faster than the intended route. Unfortunately, Devion didn't really save any time with this one. In level 3, Devion dashes and then hits the pause button in the middle of the dash. Upon unpausing the game, this proceeds to unfold. So, what the heck just happened? When the dash button is pressed, the game gives the player additional speed in the direction that they are facing for a short period of time, and a small amount of time has to elapse before the player is able to dash again. Upon pausing, the game tries to cancel any dash that is taking place, but clearly, something isn't working right. The player continues to propel forward at dash speed without actually dashing. Looking at the game's code, it's very obvious why this happens. Normally, when a dash ends, the game sets the horizontal change from the dash back down to 0. while also resetting the dash timer and starting a dash delay timer. However, in the pause function, the programmer just forgot this line of code. Using my elite hacking abilities to add the line back in, you can see that dash canceling is completely patched. Note that I had to use the Lost Gifts version of the game to do this because the original doesn't like being touched. Any left or right movements made after performing a dash cancel will cause the speed of the player to reduce significantly, with very weird behavior being exhibited regarding which direction the game decides to constantly push the player in. Dashing again at any point, without pausing in the middle of it, will fix this buggy state since the game is able to set the dash speed back down to 0. Usually, the player is stopped by some kind of wall after performing a dash cancel, which will cause them to get stuck in place as the game's collision detection refuses to allow them through. However, another fatal flaw with the game allows this to be bypassed. If the player is facing the opposite direction to the wall, collision is not checked properly. Holding left after getting stuck on a wall does cause the player to briefly clip in, but they will clip right back out since they are holding left. But by simply tapping the button, the player's direction will change without applying a lot of speed in the opposite direction. And that is when the magic happens. Once Devion gets out of bounds in level 3, he makes slight taps with the arrow keys to try to get the player facing left while the remaining dash cancel speed is pulling him right. He then clips back inbounds, where the exit door can be collected. One thing to note about being out of bounds is that there are invisible barriers at both the top and bottom of the screen, and hitting the barrier at the bottom will cause the player to completely freeze, requiring the level to be reset. The rest of the run is filled with all sorts of crafty strategies that take advantage of the dash cancel glitch, though Devion struggles greatly with a lot of the movement, both in and out of bounds. And he gets a Skype call in the middle of the run from somebody with a Lenny face as their name and a Batman profile picture. Thankfully, he was able to get rid of the pop-up in record time, successfully executing a frame-perfect, pixel-perfect cursor maneuver. Though, all of this could have been avoided if he knew that Discord had been released 3 months earlier. Collecting the exit door in level 16, Devion ended his run with a time of 9:16.233. However, in the description of the run, he claimed that he had a personal best of under 3 minutes, with no video. Analyzing the movement displayed in this run, I find that very hard to believe. Regardless, he did end up achieving the first sub-3 in the category with a 240.1 on December 20th, 2015, exhibiting much cleaner movement throughout. In this run, Devion made use of a new glitch that had been discovered known as fast doors. Normally, the player has to wait around 2 seconds at the start of each level for a door animation to play, whereafter control is granted. However, by pausing the game at any point after the level is loaded in, the player will be able to start moving immediately after unpausing. The level actually loads in before the faded animation even begins, allowing for even more time save than it may initially seem. In level 7, Devion used a very daring strategy at the start to skip an entire elevator cycle, performing a dash cancel as soon as possible and then getting a jump off this small segment of wall to just barely land on this platform. In level 10, he unfortunately ended up contacting the spikes, but by mashing the shit out of the pause button, he managed to somehow stay alive and complete the level. You see, every single time that the game is unpaused, the death animation is reset, a process that can be repeated indefinitely. The player would normally just die again after unpausing, but since these spikes are actually falling, they eventually lose contact with the player, causing them to stop refreshing the death animation. As a side note, while writing the script, I found out that it's possible to clip out of bounds without a dash cancel by using this glitch, so that's cool, I guess. With these glitches at his disposal, Devion was able to put together quite a good run for the time, and it wouldn't be until a year later that he would be dethroned by Kapp'n, who put up a time of 234.233 on November 7th, 2016. These 3 glitches alone made Pixel Quest a very broken game, with the 16 levels glitched record being over a minute ahead of Glitchless, which was a 342 by Lunexity. But what other glitches could the game possibly have in store? Well, let's just say that it was quite a few, and almost none of them had any positive applications for speedrunning. On January 26th, 2017, I uploaded a video showing Pixel Quest in a very bizarre state. The music was overlapping, menu actions were super buggy, the in-game timer was freaking out, and pausing wasn't dimming the whole screen. I realized that I had somehow managed to overlap multiple instances of a level being played on top of each other. As it turned out, I was not the first person to stumble across this bug. Cap'n had posted a guide back in 2016 about how to perform the glitch with a well-timed reset right before fading into level 17 from the cutscene. With one instance in the level and one instance back on the cutscene menu, he completed level 17 on the non-visible instance, taking him to level 18. He eventually somehow ended up playing level 17 while having a level failed menu from level 18 in front of his movement. This glitch was found to have several methods of activation, one being opening the pause menu, clicking the quit button, unpausing, resetting, and then pressing yes to exit to the main menu during the level reset. This glitch seemed like it would open the window to a lot of possibilities, but it ultimately didn't really lead to anything useful. And thanks to the large amount of lag that it caused, the music overlapping, and the extremely unusual and inconsistent side effects that it had, it was ultimately banned from being used in any submissions in early 2018. So, thankfully, there is no potential of having to play a 48 level long game at 6 frames per second with no visibility of your movement and 20 overlapping audio tracks to somehow save like 40 seconds. If you thought the jankiness of Pixel Quest ended there, you would be dead wrong. There is an extremely unusual bug where the game will outright refuse to allow the player to double jump after landing on the ground. This issue is most apparent in levels 14 and 15, where not receiving a second jump can end up leading to a decent amount of time loss. The only way to get around this bug is to simply stand still for a bit before jumping, which is obviously not an optimal action to take in the context of a speedrun. Thankfully, the game doesn't like to throw any other kind of BS at speedrunners during their run. You just witnessed the unfortunate end to a world record paced 16 levels glitchless run by Jasper the Fish. Is it known what exactly caused the game to launch Jasper backwards during a dash and into the spikes on the wall? Nope. On January 29th, 2018, speedrunner Dynamite posted a glitch showing the game in a completely soft-locked state. If you reset, pause the game, and then didn't unpause until the next door animation cutscene finished playing, then congratulations, you're paralyzed. Resetting doesn't work, but you can thankfully still go back to the main menu. However, that's not the only weird thing that can happen by pausing the game during a reset. You may have noticed that after Devion performed the death buffer glitch in level 10 in his 240, the in-game timer just stopped progressing. Well, by resetting during the door opening cutscene and pausing and unpausing, it's possible to complete any level in the game with 998 points left on the timer. Note that one timer unit represents a tenth of a second. Oh, did I say 998 points? I actually meant 999. The game sure does have a tough time making up its mind sometimes. However, it's not like the in-game timer was ever accurate anyways, since it starts at whatever point the player gains control of the character, making fast or meaningless. It doesn't account for time spent on the pause menu, another clear issue for glitched runs, and it is extremely inconsistent, especially when the game has a large amount of lag. On the same day, Dynamite uploaded another video showing this unusual occurrence.
I don't know what's happening right now, but the game just froze. The timer's counting down. Oh, what? Now I unmute it, and then it works. This game's broken. I mean, I think we've already established that, but it's broken.
Yep, Pixel Quest is quite the broken game. In a single 49-second clip, we had a bizarre softlock tied to the music mute button, lag causing the player's dashes and the in-game timer to freak out, and text characters disappearing and having broken transparency. Well, surely there can't be more. Again, on the same day, Dynamite uploaded this video.
Dash over here, do 2 jumps. What was that? I'm just gonna pretend that didn't happen. But if we pause the game, while it's moving inward, it doesn't shoot. It plays the animation, but it doesn't shoot.
Neat. You can make the cannons in the game not fire a bullet by using a well-timed pause. That could actually be useful. Unfortunately, it doesn't really seem to have been taken advantage of. Moving back to the optimization of Pixel Quest as a speed game, I managed to cut down the 16 levels glitched record from a 234.233 to a 215.567 on January 28, 2018. To help best Cappen's time, I completed level 12 with the most optimal glitchless route for the level, since I found that it was actually slightly faster and slightly easier than doing the extremely inconsistent glitched method. I applied the same philosophy to levels 13, 14, and 16, while also not accidentally performing the level dupe glitch in the middle of my run.
What the fuck, dude? Why did level dupe just happen?
Note that Cappen's run was performed before the glitch was banned. A few days later, I uncovered a hilarious glitch strategy in level 12 that had the potential to save around 10 seconds. You see, if you slide on this wall for a bit, you'll notice that the lava is just missing its death collision on the left side. Once under the lava, by performing a well-timed dash cancel, it was possible to reach the left wall of the ending cavern. A couple of jumps and a left tap later, and the level could be completed. I implemented the strategy the next day in a 16 levels glitched record of 204.6, a run that featured an abysmal level 16 and ended up quite a bit off the sub 2 milestone. Around the time that this run was set, 3 different strategies were discovered that would allow for the time to be pushed down a decent bit further. The first was found by Cappen in level 8, where one could potentially save a second by clipping in and out of the left wall to reach the ending door with a much shorter path. The second was a new approach to level 16, also found by Cappen, where the player could clip through the left wall of the level instead of the right one, whereafter they could clip through the floor of the ending cavern, optimally allowing a few seconds to be saved over the glitchless method. Finally, there was a very difficult strategy in level 13 that involved clipping through the right wall and into the very top right block of the ending cavern, where the player would be able to safely clip back in and finish the level. Clipping back in on this specific block was necessary since the wall is not large enough for the player to clip back through normally. However, I just realized while writing this script that it's possible to just perform another dash cancel and get stuck on the wall with a lot more speed, having a similar ending to the level 12 strat. This variant is significantly easier, and I think that it will definitely be incorporated into runs at some point. The 16 levels glitched category had quite a lot of promise, and the breaking of the sub 2 barrier seemed almost imminent. Unfortunately, over 4 years later, that last minute barrier has yet to be shattered. Around the same time, me and Jasper the Fish were making a huge push to try to bring the 16 levels glitchless world record lower and lower into the 30x range. Throughout its history, the glitchless category never really had any earth-shattering discoveries. It all came down to making micro-optimizations to the movement in each level, adding dashes at every moment possible. While Illumina T had waited for the third rock to fall in level 12 before safely passing by in his record of 321.267, Jasper, in his 309.933, performed a dash under every single rock, a strategy that is quite a bit harder than it looks. When I set my first glitchless record of a 309.067 on December 28, 2017, I added a dash through this elevator in level 13 to save a fraction of a second, and I tried to perform a double jump dash from this pillar in level 15, though the game had other plans. After a world record battle with Jasper that lasted 2 months, I came out on top with a 305.367. Nothing had really changed much aside from simply having cleaner movement and a slightly different approach to the end of level 14. However, I didn't want to stop there. I cleaned up my movement enough to score myself a 303.933, reaching my goal in the category. I moved on to routing and playing the any percent category of the game, because in the 3 years that people had been speedrunning Pixel Quest, not a single person had made the effort to properly complete a speedrun of the whole game in one sitting. There had been 2 runs of people completing all 48 levels of the game, one by Devion back in 2015, and another by Bug Arctida at the start of February. Devion's run was over 30 minutes long and had some awesome death buffering moments sprinkled throughout. My favorite being this one right at the very end of level 48. The The later levels in Pixel Quest are both extremely challenging and extremely long compared to the mere sprinkle of challenge present with the first 16 levels. Since Devion and Bug Argdida were using the dash cancel glitch, they were able to skip a lot of the treacherous obstacles and puzzles placed before them. The most notable example of which has to be Bug Argdida's completion of level 47, where they completely bypassed the arduous 3-key puzzle present. Argdida finished their run in 9 minutes and 21 seconds, over 20 minutes faster than Devion. However, the thing about both of these runs is that neither of them paid any attention to the number of golden idols that needed to be collected before starting the second and third level sets, which, as mentioned before, is 24 and 72 idols respectively. They were still able to go through all the levels since they already had all of them unlocked, but this made their runs glitched New Game Plus runs rather than truly being any % completions. For me, I wanted to complete the game as if it were on a fresh file without the use of dash canceling. I spent the next several days timing and routing what the fastest 72 idols were to collect in the first 2 level sets. I still have the original text document that I used to create this route, with 29 idols coming from the first level set and 43 coming from the second. The first 5 levels don't have any idols since they are tutorial levels, and they can actually be completely skipped in the context of an any % speedrun since levels 1 through 6 are actually all unlocked from the start of the game. I went to work playing the category and scored myself a 1720 on the 9th of February 2018. The run was decent, but I unfortunately had quite a few costly mistakes like this death near the end of level 47 that cost around 30 seconds. To this day, I am still the only person to have ever completed a true any % speedrun of Pixel Quest. After playing any %, I moved back to doing 16 level glitchless runs to see if I could squeeze any more time out of the category. And I don't know what was so special about February 11th, 2018, but I somehow managed to do this in under 3 hours. .2. Just a handful of frames away from reaching my new goal of a 3 flat and putting the category away for good. There were no potential new strategies to implement like there was in Glitched. I had to just keep playing the category to see what I could do. And 10 minutes later, this is what I did. Early 2018 was such an exciting time for Pixel Quest speedrunning. From all of the new discoveries, to the massive new world records, to the huge competition spree between me and Jasper, and, of course, the breaking of a new minute barrier that I had never even intended to go for. However, as you may have gathered, for the past 4 years, the game has been completely dead. Not a single person has even come close to setting a new world record in any of the game's 16 main categories. Many categories also remain completely empty, with 0 100% runs of the whole game ever being performed. No matter how much love and passion people have put into playing and optimizing a game, sometimes the community behind it just fizzles out. Sadly, it seems like the company behind the creation of Pixel Quest has faced a very similar reality. In 2015, Hard Circle announced that they were actively working on the next game in the Pixel Quest series, Pixel Jones and the Gateway of Souls. Unlike The Lost Gifts, which was basically just a reskin of the original Pixel Quest with some different levels, this game was poised to be a completely new, full-fledged game that would run on PC and consoles like the Wii U, PS4, and Xbox One. This felt like an obvious next step, as popular Flash franchises like Meat Boy had seen massive success when transitioning to the PC and console market. Hard Circle showed off the prototypes that they had at different game conferences, it began to appear on upcoming game lists, and promotional art from the game had been licensed and completed. The game seemed like it would absolutely be launching at some point in 2016. However, as of February 2022, Pixel Jones has yet to be released. Hard Circle is unfortunately no longer a company, with their domain now being on sale. Unable to find any answers as to the fate of Hard Circle and Pixel Jones, I wrote a couple of questions down and sent a Hail Mary email to what I believe to be the address of the former company's founder, Brett Measer. Shockingly, around 3 months later, I got a response. On top of the information about the creation of Pixel Quest, which I sprinkled in the introduction of this video, Brett let me know why Pixel Jones was never able to be completed: a lack of funding. The Pixel Jones team applied for different grants that would have provided the vital funding necessary to complete the game, but the requests that they made were all rejected, despite the large amount of popularity that Pixel Quest had managed to garner online. However, around 2 to 3 years ago, Brett dusted off the game and started working on it again with a group of people. I actually knew that this was the case a few years ago because, in 2018, I sent a tweet to the programmer of Pixel Quest, Thomas Martin, and 6 months later, in 2019, I got a response that they were hoping to have something to show soon. Unfortunately, the continued lack of funding and a certain event that happened near the start of 2020 ended up killing off this spark of passion. As for the end of Hard Circle, Brett said that he simply got tired of running a company and wanted to move on to other positions in the game industry. He did well enough to reach an early retirement, and now he appears to be running a blog about going on different hiking trails. Unfortunately, Thomas Martin doesn't appear to have been as fortunate. Brett said that Pixel Jones may still come back from the dead, but we will just have to wait and see what ends up happening. From the early 2000s to the mid-2010s, Flash games absolutely dominated the online space. These games reached millions upon millions of players, and despite so much interesting stuff happening during this developing period of time, it seems like almost none of it has been properly documented for people to reflect upon and learn about. I hope that, with this video, I was able to document both the speedrunning community and the company behind Pixel Quest, one of the most broken Flash games ever created. However, I don't want this video to be the last thing that people ever hear about Pixel Quest speedrunning. So, I am putting up a $100 bounty on beating my own record in Pixel Quest's 16 levels glitchless category. I am also putting a $25 bounty on my 16 levels glitched record and a $25 bounty on my any percent glitchless record. All that you have to do to claim a bounty is to submit your new record to speedrun.com and have it be verified on the leaderboard. If any of these bounties are claimed, I will update the video description and link to the run that beat my corresponding record. Sometimes, a small spark is all that's needed to initiate a huge chain reaction. Thank you all very much for watching. A huge thanks goes out to Jez for helping me edit the script for this video, to Cap'n and Jasper for helping me out with the research, and, of course, to Brett Measer for providing his unique insight that helped make this video a more complete package. I wish everyone who decides to start speedrunning Pixel Quest the best of luck, and I hope that some of the game's ancient records are finally able to be beaten.